الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Let the Quran Speak. My name is Sophia, I'm your host. The New York Police Department, NYPD, has been under fire recently from the Muslim community for an anti-Muslim video that it showed to police officers in training, and also for an extensive spying program on Muslims in the community, including Muslim leaders who were helping the police. What do the actions of the police say about the level of trust that Muslims can have for law enforcement? Should Muslims cooperate with the police? And what are appropriate actions for the police to take in trying to root out terrorism and extremism within the Muslim community? We'll be looking at all that later in the show. Also, we hear a lot about transplant tourism lately, in which people from the West go to impoverished countries and buy organs. Is this an ethical practice? Does it matter whether the person donating is poor or rich? And does it matter whether the organ is being donated or being sold? We'll be looking at all that also later in the show. And we will have a question and answer period in which you send in your questions and we answer. With me is Brother Shabir Ali from the Islamic Information Center. Brother Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
Now let's look at the case of the NYPD, or New York Police Department, for people who might not know what that means. They've done a lot of things to anger the Muslim community recently. Have you heard about these situations?
Yes, there are internet blogs and news articles, for example, an article published in the Washington Post. So this is well known. In a series of police training sessions, a video was shown that was actually put together by a non-profit group with some sort of vested interests that somehow sees Muslims as a threat.
It's called the Third Jihad.
Yes, and so they represent Muslims as being somehow all bent on jihad, even if they're not admitting it, and they're not admitting it would be Muslims not admitting that they're ready for jihad would be because they're practicing some kind of a deception, and that this too is part of the faith. See, so when this is shown to police officers in training, that obviously raises an alarm bell, because it's misinformation, and it's misinformation directed at people who might use that misinformation to mistreat Muslims as minorities living in that city.
It's interesting because when the story first broke, the police denied it and said, we're not actually showing this video, but it turns out that the commissioner was in the video itself. It wasn't just that they were showing it, but they were also featured within the video.
That's right. They did a 90-minute interview with him, and clips from his interview were then incorporated into the video.
So for many Muslims, I guess it seems like a betrayal of trust.
Yes.
They've been working with the police, trying to establish better relations, explaining what Islam is, and then on the other hand, there's this video.
Yes, after 9/11, many Muslim leaders who were identified as being moderate came to the forefront of public discussions. They attended public events, events held by government, events that were calculated to understand Islam and to understand Muslims. And by having such moderate Muslim voices aired in public, this too was a way of combating terrorism, because it was showing that in case there were some disgruntled Muslim youth who were thinking about committing acts of terrorism, they could see that here we have important Muslim leaders with good qualifications, who know what they're speaking about when they describe Islam, and they are not into this terrorism business. They are in fact preaching a moderate message, which is the message by which Muslims should live in the developed countries, and in fact in every country. So this was in fact a welcome development. And then some of these scholars who were continually with the police and helping them found later on that they themselves were the subject of wiretaps and secret investigations.
So what are we to make of that then? It seems like the NYPD, or and maybe this is a practice amongst other police departments as well. It seems like they don't trust Muslims or any Muslims.
Yes, and then this makes it difficult for the trust to go back in the other direction, because we trust the men in blue, we trust the men and women in uniform. We expect that they will level with us, they will tell us the truth, and that when we bring them into our establishment and into our discourses and so on, we expect that there is a certain level of agreement here and understanding and mutual trust. At the same time, we should give some allowance for the authorities to pursue their investigations, and sometimes precaution has to be taken. Even a person who is up in the upper echelons of government and enjoying a great degree of public trust might become subject to some secretive investigations, because some things are better done in the secretive way for it to be effective at all.
So how can we draw a line then? How can we say, well, something is inappropriate for the police to do and something is appropriate?
It is difficult to draw that line, but within the community setting, what happens is that when we deal with each other as brothers and sisters of the faith, and we're in the community and we're hugging together, sitting down, we're having a coffee, we're having social events together, then there is a mutual sort of trust that is expected within that atmosphere. If you take the same persons, put them in a very different situation, then maybe that trust is not expected. We're dealing with different issues there. So if police officers and so on are coming in, if they're coming in as police to observe, then that's fine. We go, okay, here I am, police officer, I'm investigating something, can you show me around? And yes, we show him around knowing that he's here on an investigation. But if he came in to our social event as one of the participants, and then we expect the same sort of brotherly trust, because that's what we extend to him. And in a similar way, when they invite us as Muslim scholars and speakers to go to their events and to explain the faith, we expect here that this is a kind of a social event built on mutual trust. This is not a police investigation. So mixing the two then is where the breach of trust seems to be coming to the Muslim scholars like a slap in the face. You took us in, you invited us, we came to your social function, we came to this banquet, we spoke, and at the same time you're investigating me as though I'm a criminal. It seems wrong. It
goes beyond that too, because some Muslim leaders share information, or if they see something strange in the community, they will notify the police, or they see some sort of extremist behavior, they will tell the police. So should Muslims in this case cooperate with the police to get rid of terrorism or extremism?
In the final analysis, this is what we have to do as a duty to our country and to our faith. We do not want terrorists to represent Islam, and we don't want Islam to be producing terrorists. We don't want our countries to be affected by terrorism. We don't want men and women and children to be killed by acts of terrorism. We don't want even terrorists to blow themselves up. We want peace, and so we do what we have to do to ensure the establishment of peace. And sometimes it is an unrewarding effort. You may be an activist trying to do your best to root out terrorism yourself, but you yourself become held up at the border, you are denied entry to certain countries, you become the subjects of wiretaps and secretive investigations. Sometimes your life could be made horrible, but you just have to continue doing what you know is right. And hope for your reward with God in the life hereafter.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Brother Shabir.
You're welcome.
We'll take a break. When we return, organ trafficking and transplants.